I've continually seen this comment, this idea that Outlaw is some sort of brave individual for coming onto the internet and speaking to you in the way that I am. And I would just say that there's nothing brave about what I'm doing right here. It's just that I've realized that what other people think does not matter, and that you have to accept yourself above all else. And what I mean when I say this is you watch my YouTube channel and you see someone who is absolutely an outlier in society. You see someone who is walking around talking about misanthropy right in public with people walking behind them. Do you think someone like that really cares about, what someone thinks about them? No, because they've found self-acceptance. Ironically, the point of that video is addressing being misunderstood by others and saying that it's difficult in situations where you're ganged up on by groups, but that's less of an issue of overt self-acceptance and more of just an issue of being annoyed by people who gang up on you in social groups for being an outlier. And I think that's a totally valid thing to be annoyed by, and it doesn't make you not accept yourself. What I am talking about, however, is when people, they go around and then they say like, wow, you're a terrible person, terrible shut-in, and all this other stuff. And they come to your videos and they leave these just spam hate comments and all that. Someone who did not have that self-acceptance would take either one of these two routes. They would first say, oh, it's just a comment, it's just an anon, I can ignore it, this person is not real. That's one way to deal with social anxiety. The other way is, and this is the more unhealthy way, is that the person who does not accept themselves sits there and they're distraught. They think of all these triggers that other people have told them because they are still letting the thoughts of others command their way of life rather than their own thoughts. And so, what this person does is one of two things. They either delete their YouTube channel or they keep going and try to deal with that hate. Many YouTubers, or potential YouTubers rather, do not start up their videos because they're terrified of the fact that someone might say something a little bit mean about them. And the problem with this, I think, is that if you just put in the mental effort, if you just applied the mental fortitude, you would be able to accept yourself as a person. It's just that you're letting the thoughts of others still contain you. You're letting them command you when the only person who should be commanding your life is you. You are in control of your body, you're in control of your mind, and you, as a hikikomori, are number one, because you're spending most of your time alone, right? You probably don't even have that many friends, so if you're the only company that you're going to be keeping, then you have to accept your own company for what it is. If you do not accept your own company, then you are going to be in a far worse state in hikidom, and honestly, you should probably get out of it because you might be the type of person who needs to be validated by other people, which is not good either, because self-acceptance is, important even for people who go out in the real world. So, you need to work on that. And it's, everyone can do it. That's the thing. Well, maybe not everyone, but I believe a lot of people can do it if they just apply the right logic. If they just try for long enough, eventually they can reach that self-acceptance. The thing is that so many people are held back by illogical delusions that they've set up in their own mind that they haven't really had someone take a logical stick to and slam it against their ideas. If someone did that, then they would be like, oh, yeah, that's where I fucked up. Let me try and fix this. But the thing is that so many people don't do that. They don't have someone to keep them in check, and so they end up just festering in their own filth, and their mind is basically just a cesspool of feces at that point because no one is telling them what the fuck is wrong with their brain. They have no self-awareness and all these other things, so they end up just being clouded by these terrible ideas about themselves that they're, oh, I'm such a terrible person, shut in, neat, all these other things. Listen, there's nothing wrong with being a shut-in at all. It's just a different way of life. You're not a leech for applying for NEAT bucks, because those NEAT bucks are given to people like us from the government. It's not you just because you say you have schizophrenia on the paper and you actually don't, doesn't make it more of any moral action, because the reason NEAT bucks are there are for people who can't function in society. If you're a hikikomori, you can't function in society, and you should get NEAT bucks whichever way you can. And so there's nothing immoral about it, there's nothing leeching about it. And if you live with your parents or some other individual, well, that's their fault for keeping you there if they were that concerned about you being a leech. It's just that simple. If they were that bothered about it, they would kick you out. And so what you should do in this regard is what is best for yourself, because you are the person who you're going to be stuck with. So you have to do what it is that makes you happy. Now that's a cruel reality much of the time, but you just have to. Other people are not going to afford you the same attention. They're not going to afford you the same right by giving you that empathy, by giving you that understanding. This is a world where it's every man for himself. This is a world where many people will not even stop to help you if you're dying on the street, So you need to be able to protect yourself. You need to be able to have an income. You need to be able to accept yourself for who you are, because not many other people are going to do it for you. So if you're stuck out here, if you're helpless out here, if you're afraid out here, don't be. Because there are things you can do to accept yourself. First of all, what I would recommend is reading up on self-awareness, trying to find out what are these things that are bothering me about myself, and then try and think about other ways that they could be looked at. If, for example, you have a problem with yourself for looking bad, well, why am I concerned about looking bad? Maybe it's to attract women. Adopt the mindset in which women are not the primary focus. Think about the fact that a lot of women don't actually care about personality, they only care about looks. Think about how shallow that is, and then because of that shallowness, decide, I don't want any part of that, women don't matter to me. And then find hobbies of yours that you can sink yourself into, find daily activities that make you happy, and then boom, you don't need to be concerned about the way you look anymore, because you think that women aren't the primary motive for your life anymore. There's various other things you could do in this situation. You could, change up the way you look a little bit. Maybe you like tattoos, get some of those, or just embrace the fact that you might be a bit ugly. Think of it as being your aesthetic. Think of it as being your individual style, and then be proud of that fact because it's you. I know it's like a radical concept, right? It's an insane idea to adopt. It was for me for a long time, but I've just realized, yes, this is who I am, this is what I look like, this is how I'm gonna be. And so it doesn't cloud my judgment anymore. Those irrational thoughts, I've just accepted it for what it is. And I know you can too, if you just try hard enough, because this is something most people can do, unless you have like a debilitating environment that you grew up in that is just like mentally broke you down and things of that nature. Yeah, it's not going to be so easy. I know a few people who had body dysmorphia. They're working on it for years and years and years, and they haven't been able to get through it. But there are people out there who, who don't just need to avoid their triggers, who don't need to just not think about their problem. There are people who can actively change their problem, and I think that give it a year, give it a few months, whatever amount of time that you want to allocate towards it, as long as it's not too little. Try hard enough to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and change the way you think about yourself, because in your time in Hikidom, that self-acceptance is going to be crucial, or else you'll just end up in a far worse place than you were before when you decided to withdraw. So that's my advice for y'all needs today. I want you to know you are not alone out there, that you can accept yourself if you just apply the right mental fortitude, and hopefully I've given some good advice in order to do that. I will see you all later.